I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is 13-year-old Madeline Soto, young girl from Central Florida who faced years of sexual abuse before she was finally murdered just after her 13th birthday party. Here's her story. Madeline Soto had just turned 13. She had a party Sunday, February 25th. The party wasn't at her house, but at the home of a relative. Her mom, Jen Soto, couldn't go to the party because she was working. So Madeline's aunt dropped her off. That night, Jen's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Stephan Stearns, went to the house to watch Madeline. Jen got home around 10. At around 11, Jen went to sleep and told Stephan to go to sleep with Madeline in the guest bedroom upstairs. That was the last time Jen saw Madeline alive. Stephan says he dropped Madeline off at school in the morning, but Madeline never made it. She was murdered and discarded about 20 miles from her home. Prosecutors have charged Stephan with that murder, but they've also charged him with something else. Years of sexual abuse. They say they found incriminating images of Stearns abusing Madeline on his Google Drive. Abuse that goes back more than 4 years. Meanwhile, Stephan's parents have been speaking out on the Hidden True Crime podcast, revealing even more insight into what happened to Madeline. Every time you talk about this story, I talk about this story, people talk about the story, it comes back to this one thing which nobody really understands, which is the sleeping arrangements. The sleeping arrangements in this home where this young girl who had just turned 13 was living. You've got this on-again, off-again boyfriend, Stephan Stearns. We know a lot more about him now, based upon the charges and the alleged evidence against him. But the sleeping arrangements where Jen Soto, Madeline's mother, would send her and her boyfriend up to the guest bedroom. It's insanity. So who knew about this and what did they say about this? Take a listen to Stephan Stearns' mother, Deborah, talking about this bizarre arrangement.
The only thing that we knew that was wrong, and we addressed it immediately, was when we became aware of the co-sleeping arrangements. And they were here at our house. And at that point, I put my foot down and said, Madeline's not sleeping in the room with you. She's too old for that. And I said, you need to stop doing that at home too. And I talked to both Jen and to Stephan. And Jen says, well, she comes in at night. She gets scared. She comes in at night and climbs into bed, and I can't stop her. I said, does your door have a lock on it? She said, yes. I said, well, then you use the damn lock. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then to send your child off to sleep with a man in another room in a single bed together, who is not a biological relative. And Madeline is the one that told me about the co-sleeping. Not Stephan and not Jen. Madeline did. When she related, she said it was a funny story. She says, oh, I was in bed with Mom and Stephan, and when I woke up in the morning, my leg was draped over him, and she went, isn't that funny? I said, no, it's not. I don't find that funny.
So so other people are finding out about this arrangement and calling them out. And don't forget, like, Jen Soto is Madeline's mother. But this didn't stop those arrangements, because we know on the night that she disappeared, the night that she was murdered, that was the arrangement for Madeline to go upstairs with Stephan to the guest room. That brings me to my first question tonight. It's about Jen Soto. Why did Jen Soto think this was okay? Why did she think it was okay to send her just turned 13-year-old daughter upstairs in the guest bedroom with this man? I mean, even the man's mother refers to him as just this man who's not related. Let's try to find some answers here. Joining me tonight, host of the Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel, providing all of this video from this amazing 2-hour interview that you can watch on YouTube. Lauren Mathias is with us. Also joining us, Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Dr. Gail Saltz is with us as well. Great to have you both here. Lauren, let's begin with, I mean, it seems like from your interview that they're called out on this. Like Stephan and Jen are called out about this sleeping arrangement. It's just wrong. Why did Jen think it was okay?
Well, I think that's the question, you know, you posed it, Vinnie, and I think that's the question we're all still wondering about. Nobody knows why she thought it was okay. Nobody knows why she felt it was okay for her daughter to go to bed the night she was murdered with Stephan Stearns. And I think that Stephan's parents, according to our interview with them, they don't know either. You know, they don't know why this was okay either. And while Madeline was at their home, they certainly protected her from that and said it's not okay. But nobody still understands. That's the ultimate question. How is this happening in 2024?
Makes no sense to me, but Dr. Gail Saltz, what I want to play for you is Jen Soto responding to this question, because the detective who's investigating the murder and the sexual assault is asking Jen Soto about this. Here's what she said.
You guys are sleeping in the same bed together. You guys are all cohabitating. She's not sleeping in her room. But you felt the need to establish a rule that they couldn't sleep in the same room. But when you established that rule, for 3 years, she's already been dating him, essentially. Whether that's legal or not.
I had no idea. If I knew anything, I promise you, I would tell you. Like, I am willing to take a lie detector test, whatever the you want, but I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. I tried watching her like a hawk. I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't. I was oblivious to everything. 4 years?
Minimum. That's just how that far back the cloud goes. And I find it hard to believe for me that you were so worried about how many pills she took at night, but not where she slept or what relationship she was. His interest in her.
I thought we were all safe. I thought because in that he hadn't shown me anything so far. Like, everything seems fine. Like, he seemed like he treated her like
he treats you.
Okay, Dr. Gail Saltz, and I thought Lauren said it so well. Like, this is 2024. Why would Jen Soto think this is okay?
I could tell you denial is powerful, and the ability to compartmentalize for a woman who wants to be with a man, who believes the man is her boyfriend, and therefore would not want to believe that her boyfriend is actually a pedophile who would be molesting her own child. That is something that, if you accept that, right, if you suspect that and believe that, then that person can't be your boyfriend anymore, needless to say. So if you think you're in love with them or you need them, this is what you see happen. Sometimes it's not even the boyfriend or the step, it's the actual biological parent who is molesting their own child. And partners, it's hard for partners sometimes to see that, even if the signs seem obvious to an outsider, because of powerful denial, believing that this person that you love, who you think loves you, is a pedophile and molesting your child.
You know, something else that came up in one of the interviews I want to play for everyone, and this involves Jen. To me, this is the closest to an acknowledgement, an admission by her that she knew this was very possibly happening. Take a listen.
I've always told him that my biggest fear is that this would turn into a Woody Allen situation where the stepdaughter or the dad grooms the child and the child turns 18 and ends up running away with him. I told him, like, that was my biggest fear and I don't ever want that happening. Like, you can't do that to me. Like,
why would you say that to him?
Because I never trusted. I grew up being told never trust a man. My mom put that in my body, never trust a man.
Lauren, what was the sense you got from Stearns' parents about the nature of this relationship between Jen and their son?
You know, they explained it as an on and off again relationship. They explained that it was, you know, up and down, which is what we have heard as well from the evidence that has been released by police. And but that they loved Madeline very much, and they did see that Stephan was close to Madeline, and they thought that Stephan might have been sort of a father figure of sorts, and that they were this sort of family, although not perfect. You know, they weren't necessarily Jen's best friend. They didn't necessarily treat her like a daughter-in-law, you know, of that sort. It wasn't that close. They didn't know how long this would last, but it was certainly a unit, a family unit, the three of them.
Dr. Gail Saltz, if she is even pondering in her mind that this could be like a Woody Allen situation, like that means that she's acknowledging this is very possible, yet she still thinks it was okay for them to go off together.
Look, this is the tricky thing about one's mind, right? Some evidence can come in and you can have a moment of, oh my gosh, this is possible. And of course you hear when she thinks this is possible, it's not, oh my gosh, my poor daughter. It's, oh my gosh, poor me. He will leave me for her. That's the front of her concerns. And so you can have a moment of this leaking through, oh my gosh, what's gonna become of me if this truth were there? And then, wrap it up, suppress it, push it away, try to repress those thoughts you're having and be like, no, it couldn't be happening. He says he's being good. I'm going to believe him. We see this all the time in molestation cases, in sexual abuse cases at home, in domestic violence cases at home. It's out and then you stuff it back in because it's an unacceptable outcome to you. For her, sadly, and most sadly for this poor little girl, the mom is saying in that instance, the most sad outcome would be that he would not love her. He would love the daughter and go off with the daughter.
All right, we have a lot more to get through in this tragedy. Coming up next, is there more to this story?
All of the money that was coming in by the handfuls and the way they were spending it, where did it come from?
It was mass chaos in Kenosha.
A 17-year-old boy charged with killing 2 people during a chaotic protest.
Kyle Rittenhouse is the hero of Kenosha.
My son lost his life protecting other people. My son was a hero.
People are dug in on both sides.
It was scary to put him on, but we felt as though we had to.
I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All new Sunday night, 8/7 Central.
Only on Court TV.
But Madeline was an absolute joy. The girl was happy, precocious, smiling. She walked with a bounce. She was interested in everything. She had giggled a lot. She giggled a lot. This is a horrible loss in the world. She's a child. She should still be here.
Those are the parents of Stephan Stearns, the man accused of sexually assaulting and murdering little Madeline Soto. Now, they've been demonized by some folks online, social media, etc. Watching this interview on Hidden True Crime podcast, they come across as very genuine, forthcoming, and thoughtful, and and cooperating with police as well. I mean, that's something else that happened here. I want you to take a listen to this part because they also talked about something that really stuck out to me, like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Watch this.
Ask yourself the big question, the really big question out there. All of that stuff on the computer, all of that stuff on his phone, all of the money that was coming in by the handfuls and the way they were spending it, where did it come from?
All that money? All that money, where is it coming from? So there's money flowing into Stephan Stearns and Jen Soto, and they're spending it? Brings me to my next question, which is there more to this story? We know for years Madeline was being abused. The images go back 4 years. Is there more to the story? With me, host of the Hidden True Crime Podcast and YouTube channel, Lauren Mathias, and private investigator Jason Jensen, also a criminalist and profiler. All right, Lauren, all this, I mean, I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. What money are we talking about? How much? It's flowing in. Is there more to that story?
It was certainly interesting. You know, I agree. And here's one thing that's compelling. The Stearns is no more about, of course, Stephan Stearns' financial situation than anyone, because they oftentimes had to support their son. That was one of their complaints that they shared during this, is they felt that he was childlike a little bit and wasn't ever responsible like an adult should be. So it's definitely compelling. They seem to know about money that we don't know about. Maybe police know about this money, but I can tell you that in evidence photos that we've seen, there is, you know, like a cell phone propped up in a room on a tripod. I mean, maybe that's a project Madeline was doing for school. I'm not trying to jump to conclusions, but there's a tripod in a room, right? There are things. And then we learned that Stephan Stearns has 35,000 photos on his phone that are horrendous, you know, the worst of the worst type of photos on his phone that police have as evidence, an entire hard drive. What are they doing with this? What is going on? And so I think that the question is compelling. We don't know. And I think we are all waiting to find out, is there more to this? This abuse was going on for years. Why? Why so many photos? What was going on? And was there a business happening? I think is the ultimate question we're all wondering.
Let's take a listen, Jason Jensen. I want you to listen to Stephan Stearns' father here talking about some hard drives and USBs.
Said, hey, look, there's a desktop computer at home. Maybe you guys should come get it. He said, okay, we'll make arrangements to do that. Only to find out that the hard drive was removed from it. I know it was there Sunday morning when he left, because I told the police that after I found that out. So he purposely removed that hard drive. Why? We're cleaning out his room a few weeks later, come across this USB drive, 2 of them, as a matter of fact. I put one in both of them computer. One had nothing, just like the evidence shows. The other one, I just hovered my mouse over the fields, didn't see any image, because again, you can't unsee what you see.
It's just file names,
File names, and just from the description, I said, this is not good.
Wow. I want to show you one more thing, Jason, which is something that was uncovered by Gray Hughes, another friend of ours, podcaster on YouTube. Gray Hughes Investigates. And what he uncovered is that Stearns looks like he was on Telegram the night of the murder, or the night Madeline disappeared, at 11:49 p.m. Telegram is that app where you can do things very anonymously. And there are groups of people doing things anonymously there. So what are your thoughts tonight about, is there more to this story, Jason?
Well, Vinnie, from what I see here and from what we're understanding is, in light of my experience in the past with child pornography cases, we really see all the pieces assembling here of a potential black marketeer selling and in the market of trading child pornography images for profit. So if he wasn't working and there's no real connection to funds, and yet there's a large amount coming and going, it's likely that he's tied to the child porn black market.
You know, Lauren, just thinking about that, is there any indication, these tens of thousands of images, is it just Madeline, or are there other children? Does anyone know the answer to that question?
We do not know yet. That is what people do not know. We know that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of little Madeline, but what other photos he had is uncertain when it comes to what the public knows.
And Jason, Jesse, you talk about some of these apps where people can be anonymous and they use all these VPNs and they're bouncing around the world. People can exchange things, my understanding, and you can't track it. It becomes virtually impossible for law enforcement to track it.
Exactly. These are anonymizers. They're intended for that purpose, not to be tracked, because everything that you send out on the internet goes out in batches, and they can trace its back to its origin. So VPN usage and these anonymizers going around to different foreign servers is a way to bypass that. And how they initiate it is they typically go into the dark web. And if he's got the tools there at the house to do that, pineapple router and things of that nature, that's exactly what he's doing.
And again, Lauren, it comes back to the money. I mean, if there's money flowing in this household and they're spending it, it's got to come from somewhere. And we have about 15 seconds here, and he wasn't working. She just started to work.
He wasn't working. He wasn't working, and this was a problem his whole adult life. He was oftentimes had to be supported or helped by his parents, and he was not working, and they're talking about money flowing in.
Wow. That is absolutely jaw-dropping. Okay. Like I said, there is more to this story. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of 13-year-old Madeline Soto, whose 13 years on this earth included sex abuse, a really strange home life, and ended with murder. Here's her story. Madeline Soto's life was difficult. Her dad lived at his estate, so she was being raised by her mom, Jen Soto. Jen had an on-again, off-again relationship with a man named Stephan Stearns. Stearns didn't work much, he didn't own much, so he spent a lot of time over the years living in the house with Jen and Madeline. Then in a strange arrangement, Stearns would sometimes sleep with Jen and Madeline, and sometimes with just Madeline alone. Jen says she didn't suspect anything was going on, but when Madeline went missing and was found murdered, detectives told Jen Stearns had pictures on his phone of Madeline being sexually abused by Stearns. Her reaction has raised some eyebrows and some suspicion, but Jen hasn't been charged with anything, while Stearns has been charged with abusing and murdering Madeline and is facing a potential death sentence. And now Stearns' parents have been speaking out on the Hidden True Crime podcast, revealing even more about what happened. Think about being the parent of someone who is accused of what Stephan Stearns is accused of. I mean, basically a monster, public enemy number one, between the level of abuse and then the murder and the alleged cover-up and the lying and the manipulating and everything else, and just being kind of creepy. But they spoke out, and from them speaking out, you learn a lot more about this man who's accused of these horrific crimes facing the death penalty. I want you to take a listen to this part of the interview from the Hidden True Crime podcast, because I think this we're going to hear a lot more about this when he gets to trial. Take a listen.
Now we're trying to self-analyze, what we did or didn't do that caused this, and we're not even sure. Well, we know we're not the cause of it. We're trying to pursue a conversation about an accident Stephan had 30 years ago as the possibility of causing this.
Did you hear that? An accident 30 years ago that Stephan Stearns had, I guess, as a child, that could have caused this. That brings me to my next question. based upon that. What happened to Stephan Stearns? What was that 30 years ago? How did that impact his life, his psyche? Did that change him? Did that turn him into the accused murderer, sex abuser, pedophile that he is now? Joining me to help us through all this, host of the Hidden True Crime Podcast and YouTube channel, providing all of this incredible interview. 2 hours of it is available on the channel. Lauren Mathias is with us, and Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry, Dr. Gail Saltz is with us as well. I want to listen to more from that interview, Lauren, because it was fascinating hearing some of the history here. In this part, they talk about this accident.
Stephan was literally run over by a pickup truck twice. He and a friend were playing in a parking area, and when he was 7 or 8 years old, the guy came out to his truck, a small Toyota pickup truck. "Hey guys, how you doing?" Gets in the truck and immediately backs over them. Pushes Stephan down into a bit of a hole in the parking lot. Drove right over him, and hit him in the head with the bumper as he backed up the first time, and then if that was enough, he pulled forward and ran over him again. The fact that Stephan isn't...
They hit him in the back of the head first, and then when Stephan raised up to look, he heard the kid screaming. He quickly put it in gear and drove forward and hit him in the front, and then came up over his body, up over his pelvis area.
The fact that he wasn't permanently disabled and wheelchair bound is a miracle.
Thank the mud.
But there wasn't, when he was released from the hospital, the doctor said, "Hey, be cognizant of any difference in his attitude and his demeanor and such." And we pressed for more information, and we just told that he could have some headaches, dizziness, nausea, insensitivity to light and stuff, may not be able to wake up or go to sleep. And there could be some other physical traits. He developed a tic for a while, and he outgrew that. He did suffer
PTSD.
From PTSD and also separation anxiety, but we just never knew what to expect. But they just told us to be on the lookout for things, and what we did find is that his personality changed. He changed 180 degrees. He was a high energy kid, full of love, laughter, and such, and to something totally different.
The troglodyte.
So, Lauren, as we listen to this, I want to just make it clear. They believe that he did this, right? That he's guilty of the assault and the murder.
Absolutely, they do. And I want to tell you this too, Vinnie. We were in touch with them prior to this interview, of course. We've been in touch with them for a couple of months. And we watched them process this. So at first, they weren't so sure. And then they became certain, and as more evidence has come out, they've listened to the evidence. And when they approached us and said, "We're ready to interview," it was because they realized they called their son the sole perpetrator. They realized that he was responsible, and they wanted to talk after that. And so, yes, they realized that their son did this to Madeline, everything to Madeline.
Dr. Gail Saltz, let's talk about that accident. 7 or 8 years old, getting hit by a pickup truck a couple of times, run over. They described his personality changing 180. But could something like that impact someone to the point that for whatever reason, they're attracted to children as an adult, that they could somehow turn them into this alleged monster that he's been accused of being?
Well, traumatic brain injury, if that's indeed what happened, and there's no documentation, so I can't tell you that that's what happened, but is linked later in life to, as it evolves, to obviously cognitive deficits, but also For some people, increased aggression, increased irritability, impulsivity, depression. So, and sometimes, violence, absolutely, as a result of this impulsivity mixed with aggression. So that is something that one could be concerned about if one suffered traumatic brain injury as a child. However, there is no known link to pedophilia. Personality change as perceived by becoming, more depressed or more aggressive. It certainly could seem that way. You also have to know that, when someone is 8 years old and then becomes an adolescent and a teenager, to many parents, their kid seems to have a personality change. And I'll also say that post-traumatic stress disorder, which they mentioned, also is not connected in any way to pedophilia, or for that matter, necessarily to violent or aggressive behavior. It's usually fearful, anxious behavior, nightmares, intrusive thoughts about the horrible event that occurred, and they mentioned separation anxiety. Again, not surprising, but there's nothing here to explain being a pedophile per se. And I would moreover say that in terms of being, wondering, hey, is there a defense here, in terms of this crime? The measure is, does the person understand that what they did in committing the crime was wrong? And you can have traumatic brain injury, you can have PTSD, you can have all kinds of things and still have the capacity to understand your crime was a wrong that you did, and then you are, that's your crime. You're not innocent based on mental illness or traumatic brain injury, for that matter.
I want to take a listen to another piece of the interview here. Stern's father talking about him as a child.
The emotional connection. How would you guys describe your emotional connection to your son when he was younger?
I thought it was very close and loving.
Yeah, it was really close up until the accident, and not that we changed, he changed. I mean, he was, if you show you photos of him, as a kid, I mean, he's running through the house on the tips of his toes and just a little speed demon, laughing and giggling all the time. Really a quite bubbly personality. I mean, we discovered very early on that if he was focused on something, forget about it. His recently discovered behavior. I mean, this, like I said, this is the son that we don't know. This is not the son that we do know. So.
Let me ask you, Lauren, Stearns is a guy, my understanding, was into like Tamagotchis and Star Wars and things that kids would be into. What did his parents think about him as a man? Because he didn't have a job, did he?
No, they had a lot of concerns with, I would say, arrested development, and that's my term, not theirs, but that's what they were getting at. They said that he didn't have a job, he would never take responsibility. They said that they would encourage him in different paths. So when they thought he was really interested in something, they would encourage a career path with him. They tried to help him multiple times get that job, get that interest. And that's what they said. Nothing clicked. He never really worked. He got a job at Disney, of all places, and that he did like these toys. Pokemon was another one, and that he would collect these toys, and that was an interest that continued on as a child and into adulthood. So those are some of the things that they explained about him that also concerned him. They said it was like he just went from like 29, or he went from 19 to 29 to 39, and like nothing ever stuck. He never became that responsible adult that they hoped he would become.
Dr. Gail Saltz, we only have about 20 seconds left here. What are your thoughts there about this concept, as Lauren points out, arrested development?
Absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, we see this, right? Young men and women, for that matter, who don't have ambition, which is something, again, traumatic brain injury, you would think about that, just can't sort of organize themselves, don't have a good moral compass, We don't know about other traumas that may have occurred to him when he was a younger person. Certainly, if you have an urge to be sexually with children, that is socially unacceptable, it's illegal, and it would make it difficult to function and motivate yourself to move forward in life.
Dr. Gail Saltz, thanks so much. When we come back, what did Stephan Stearns tell his parents?
To the incident of Maddie's disappearance, coming up with something like that, when he called me that afternoon, second call that day, flat tire, listen to that BS.
Sarah Boone is charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend suffocated inside of a suitcase.
He's in the suitcase still. There are multiple domestic violence incidents.
You two hitting each other.
Sarah. That's my name. Don't wear it up.
He's telling you, Sarah, I can't breathe.
George Torres locked inside of a suitcase, begging for help.
I thought he was okay.
The Suitcase Murder Trial. Live coverage starting October 7th on Court TV.
It's very conclusive, and it does, in our mind, indicate Stephan is a lone perpetrator. As much as we want to believe what he said, that there are other people involved, and you look at the evidence that's been presented, and it's pretty conclusive that there doesn't appear to be anybody else involved, and that he is the lone perpetrator.
Stephan Stearns' father, coming to a conclusion that's got to just be difficult for any father. My son is the sexual abuser of a child and the murderer of a child, and did it by himself. Wow. So he apparently is singing some sort of a different tune to his parents about what exactly happened here. But if you take a listen now to his mother speaking, another fascinating piece of this interview where she reveals something about Stephan that maybe we all kind of gathered from following this story.
He was a gaslighter. He could make you think things were one way when they were a total other way, and do it with such sincerity that you questioned yourself.
It started when he was a teenager.
Okay.
Little stuff, and then they got bigger and bigger as he got older. I mean, you never got the truth about anything.
Amazing, right? So you wonder, how could Jen Soto be bamboozled? Well, this is a guy who spent his life lying and became really good at it and make you feel like you were doing something wrong. But something else I gathered from there is that he is talking and he is telling a story, which brings me to my next question. What did Stephan Stearns tell his parents? Right? He had to have some story that he told them. Still with me, host of the Hidden True Crime podcast and YouTube channel, Lauren Mathias, and private investigator Jason Jensen. Okay, was there, Lauren, any sort of admission or story that he told his parents about what happened to Madeline?
There was, and it was surprising to hear. He told his parents that he had to go cool off. And at first I thought that meant, by the way, was he angry or literally cool off? And it sounds like it was maybe a literal cooling off, that he had to go cool off. And so he went for a walk, leaving Madeline in the bed he was sleeping with her in, and that he came home and Madeline was cold. That was the story he initially told his parents.
They're not buying that. Okay. Jason, I want you to take a listen to Stearns' father here talking about the flat tire story, which is a big part of what happened here with Madeline.
When he called me that afternoon, second call that day, flat tire, and listened to that BS. And boy, when you look at the images of that tire, I mean, there wasn't hardly any rubber left on that wheel whatsoever. And then they showed pictures of these chunks of rubber laying in the ground. And Stephan trying to explain to me that he had a flat tire and he was in the inside lane of a highway in a high density commercial district and he couldn't pull off the road. Again, you know, it was a story that I didn't believe, and then getting a call 90 minutes later, less than 90 minutes later, about Maddie's disappearance. And I go, that's too coincidental. 2 events like that in a single afternoon. Don't believe in coincidences.
Jason Jensen, my guess is you don't believe in coincidences either.
No, not at all, Vinny. In fact, one of the statements that Chris said in the interview that we haven't listened to is, well, and his wife, is they mentioned that once they realized he was a gaslighter and they would call him out, he was not a happy camper with them because he couldn't get away with it anymore. And so this is a revelation that Chris is realizing 2 stories in one day, I'm not believing it. So that's the point he's trying to make here is there's no coincidence, and I would agree.
Now, something else that happened is that Stern's father, the night of the disappearance, I guess, goes up to help them. Let's take a listen to this, because he's going up there to, you know, get them out of the house and get them someplace where they can stay. But let's listen to what he says about that.
Well, I'm waiting to talk to the police. Not even sure they're even going to talk to me. The opening conversation was, were you aware that Stephan was in Northport? What exit do you live off of? Do you know that Stephan was in Northport? I go, what? You're serious? I just drove the middle of the night, tucked him into a hotel room. I went to bed, and within an hour, he's out of there. He actually runs to St. Cloud, then he goes to Northport. And I said, you're kidding me. Of course, I learned hours later when Jen called me, I go, do you know where Stephan is? I go, no. What do you mean, where's Stephan? He isn't with you?
So, Lauren, to put this into context, this is like when it's still a missing child case, right? And no one's been arrested.
Correct.
So what is Stephan Stearns doing here?
I think we're all wondering, but I think we're wondering where he went. Did he go back to her remains? Well, what was he doing? What was he collecting? And was he collecting things at their house? Because the Stearns' house was also searched, his parents' house, and things collected that are very upsetting and things that he was keeping in his house and had mailed to his parents' home. So what was he doing in the middle of the night after leaving that motel room that his parents got him? And yes, it was because their house was being searched. Madeline was missing. So Stephan Stearns' father said, let me get you guys a hotel room.
And then he takes off.
And what does Stephan do? And he takes off. He takes off. What was he doing?
We are out of time for now, but a big thank you to Lauren Matthias. Check out all 2 hours on Hidden True Crime Podcast. And Jason Jensen, always appreciate your insight. Now, Stephan Stearns will likely go to trial, and prosecutors will have to prove their case. I don't know what his defense will be, but I do know this. The stories that he's told so far appear to be easily contradicted by evidence that can't be contradicted. But I don't expect him to admit anything. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.